The question is that this bill be now read a second time, and I call the honourable member for Richmond.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I rise also today to speak in support of the Social Services Legislation Amendment Child Support Measures Bill 2023. And as we've heard many speakers say, this bill will make the child support scheme better and fairer for Australian families, and these improvements are very much needed to make this scheme much more effective and essentially fairer. And of course, the child support scheme was introduced by the Hawke government in 1988, and today the Albanese Labor government is continuing that very important legacy. And the child support scheme ensures that children receive regular financial support from both parents after a separation. And it also assists parents to share the responsibility of both raising their children and providing for their economic security and their upbringing. And of course, since the scheme's introduction, more than $33 billion in child support payments have been delivered. Now, Deputy Speaker, we are all of us acutely aware that most parents, of course, do absolutely the right thing in providing all of those necessary provisions for their children. We are very much aware of that and want to make that clear. But the changes brought forth in this bill, however, ensure that our government can appropriately act in those cases where those parents are not acting fairly in terms of making sure there are provisions for their children. And that's why the changes in this bill are necessary. And in fact, that's why this bill introduces three important key changes. And these changes are expected to recover up to $164 million in debt, which is rightfully owed to parents and their children. It's absolutely vital that those parents are able to access that in terms of the upbringing of their children, which of course there are many pressures and lots of financial necessities in raising children, and when you have cases where they have not been receiving that child support, it of course makes it much more incredibly difficult. Now, Deputy Speaker, firstly, the bill expands the circumstances where Services Australia can deduct child support debts directly from a parent's wages. An employer withholding is an effective and efficient way for the government to collect child support and administer it to parents. Probably the most effective way, and the process also ensures that child support is paid on time, allowing parents to meet the everyday financial needs of their children, to make sure it's paid on time at that regular interval, to ensure that they have that money to be able to effectively raise their children and provide for that economic security. Now, currently, Services Australia can only initiate an employer withholding arrangement in active child support cases. That is currently the situation. And this bill put forward today will allow Services Australia to initiate employer withholding to collect child support debts in any case, including when a case has ended. For example, the child may have turned 18 and therefore the case has ended, yet there's still an outstanding debt that is owed. It is still outstanding. This change alone is expected to recover up to $164 million in unpaid child support from around about 18,000 parents, with an average debt of a staggering $11,000 owing to the receiving parent. And a change like this will vitally help those single parents around the country. Indeed, $11,000 is such a significant amount to those particular single parents who indeed have been doing it really tough. This reform will also make the payment process easier, a lot more hassle-free for both parents by preventing debts from building up, and they're in fact causing more problems. Secondly, Deputy Speaker, this bill will highlight the rules around departure prohibition orders. This will allow the government to stop parents who owe child support from leaving Australia until they actually pay what they owe or they agree to a payment plan. And essentially, this measure will stop people from running away overseas and not fulfilling these obligations and not paying their share for their children's financial security and well-being. It will also protect the rights of parents who owe child support, who are indeed struggling and having those added pressures on them. And this reform will stop parents from exploiting a loophole in the current system, and it will allow Services Australia to refuse an exemption when the parent has a history of not paying their child support debt. Now, whilst this measure is indeed, of course, expected to only impact a very small number of parents, around 110, this group is in fact responsible for a very significant debt pool. In fact, a debt pool that sits at an average of $43,500 per parent. And of course, this is not fair at all and not okay, and very unfair to those children and the single parents who are raising that child and who are here. The bill will give the government the power to stop these parents from leaving Australia unless they actually pay what they owe or agree to the payment plan. And we must all ensure that people do not get away with exploiting a system which is actually designed to support and help their children. And indeed, these changes are in line with what other countries do, such as New Zealand, the United Kingdom and the United States. And Deputy Speaker, thirdly, this bill will improve the income accuracy for low-income parents who are not required to lodge a tax return. Child support customers who earn less than the self-support amount of $27,508 and received an income support payment on each day of the financial year are not required to lodge a tax return. And currently, if low-income parents do not provide income information, Services Australia may apply a default provisional income, which sits at 2/3 of the annual total average weekly earnings for a male, currently just over $55,000. However, this is double the self-support amount, so it can significantly overestimate a parent's income. And indeed, an inaccurate estimate can put low-income parents into financial hardship in two ways. It can result in a parent receiving less child support than they should, or it can result in a parent being liable to pay more child support than they are actually able to. So today's bill fixes this problem by deeming a parent's income to be equal to the self-support amount. And this will ensure the child support assessment takes into account a much more accurate estimate of the parent's income, a much more fairer system. Yet it will also stop parents from hiding or reducing their income on purpose and make sure that child support payments are fair and reasonable. And this change alone is expected to benefit up to 150,000 low-income child support parents each year, with receiving parents making up around 70% of this particular group. Now, Speaker, the changes in this bill will make a real difference to the lives of single parents and their children. But we all know there is more work to do to improve the child support scheme in order to better support families. And this bill is the first step to make the scheme better for parents and children. And indeed, in the government's response to the Joint Select Committee on Australia's Family Law System, which was in fact tabled in January 2023, we have committed to implement a range of recommendations to improve the scheme over the longer term. And these include reviewing compliance with a particular focus on improved collection and enforcement. And, Deputy Speaker, as I said before, we know that the majority of people do the right thing. Yet, the fact is some people deliberately avoid paying child support to inflict financial control and abuse on their former partners. And in fact, our government will not stand for that. We also know that in some circumstances the child support system has been used as a means of continued financial control and abuse after people have left abusive partners, which of course results in sustained trauma for victim survivors, and we know that does occur. And speaking as the Assistant Minister for the Prevention of Family Violence, I'm very proud to be working alongside my colleagues sitting here today and the entire government with the firm commitment of ending violence in all its forms. We are absolutely committed to that. And Deputy Speaker, in terms of this bill, in conclusion, the Albanese Labor government will ensure that single parents and their children receive the financial support that they are entitled to. And we as a government will keep working hard to better the lives of Australian families and ensure the best interests of the children are paramount in all that we do. And Deputy Speaker, it is for those reasons that we have this bill and those particular changes that are recommended. And Deputy Speaker, I commend the bill to the House.
Thank